Guys, welcome back to Three Bold Takes. And for this week's conversation, I wanted to talk a little UNLV transfer situation with Matthew Sluka. But before we get into that, we are sponsored by SeatGeek. Guys, I love using SeatGeek for every kind of event I'm going to, whether it's sports, concerts, don't matter. Gives me the best prices on seats. If you wanted to go to any kind of concert, guys, SeatGeek's offering you $20 off your first purchase as long as you use our code 3BoldTakes at sign up. So it's 3 bold takes at sign up, $20 off using SeatGeek for your first ticket purchase. Now let's talk some NIL, guys. Everybody saw the story that broke down over the week, last week, heading into week 5, and that was Matthew Sluka coming out saying he was promised X amount, didn't get that much, wasn't being met to the promises he was being fulfilled to, and he chose to take his red shirt, sit out the rest of the year, and then play again next season. And no sooner than he did that, you got a Storm, the running back from UNLV, also turns around, does the same thing. Then you see Bear Alexander at USC turn around and do it. Linebacker at Washington turns around and does it. Look, I've seen a lot of conversation on this topic about should he have done it? Is it right to move out on your team? Look, here's what I think. I have no issue. If you were promised X amount and you didn't get it, it's hard for me to get on here and say that a guy should stick it out and play for that team when he was there for one thing and he didn't get it.
True.
All right. Now, here's the reality. And this is really the only takeaway I have from this situation. It's time to get money being directly paid to these players from the university instead of through a collective. That way, the university can be held responsible for situations like this. It's time to start giving agent access to players so that they can sign written contracts. That way, because let's be real, a lot of the biggest issues we've seen come out of NIL so far up to this point are collectives or actually coaches making promises on behalf of the collectives, and then the collectives not wanting to give out that much money because they weren't being like there was no channel of conversation between the two, and it's creating these issues. If you go strictly university pays these players, a lot of that's taken out because it's a lot easier to walk half a block down the campus to the president's office and talk about allocated funds than it is to try to get hold of the 70 donors that make up your collective to see who's willing to give you the money you need. All right. And then
Mm-hmm.
when it's time to set a cap, it's time to set a physical cap
Love it.
and make it where people have to allocate their money. Look, if we've already opened Pandora's box, we've made this a professional sport. It's time to treat it as such. That way we can get rid of, because honestly, not only does this suck for fans who you get 3 or 4 games deep in the season and you've got key players on your team leaving. That's not fun. That's not a fun product to consume. And it's not good for these players. They're getting screwed over and they're wanting to drop out of these seasons because they don't like being lied to. And I think that's a fair thing. Like the way I see it is if you were working a job somewhere and they promised you advancement within 6 months and X amount increase on your salary, and then you didn't get those things, would you still be wanting to work at that job? And I'm not saying like I'm. Let's be honest. Like, would you? I wouldn't. I'd move on.
Yep.
So I think it's time that we start setting in some like just basic structure to the NIL and transfer portal to fix a lot of these problems. Because if you can't just make blind promises, and you can say like, "Hey, it's on Sluka for just believing a blind promise," but I think that aspect shouldn't even exist. I think that should be gone, and we should get a more easily held accountable system in place.
And I'm going to go before Freddie does because I know Freddie has a lot stronger of opinion. And Quinn's on one side. I think Freddie, I'm going to be right down the middle here because this is one's really tough for me when you look at the player's perspective, when you look at the nation's perspective, right? For me, Sluka was promised $100,000 and then during the season said, "Hey, I want my money. I don't want any more money after the fact. I just want the money that you promised,"
Yep.
which is totally well. You know what? You were promised that. Look at what you've done for UNLV so far, too. Honestly, I might give you 200K because of that, because you've made UNLV relevant to start the season, which is huge. But his agent didn't get anything contractually, which was the first mistake, and just said, hey, here's a hope and a prayer. You know what? Let's go play football at UNLV, Matt. And that's the biggest problem here. But my other end of this shtick is, and my love for college football is, you just started one of the best seasons in UNLV history. You are a dark horse for potentially being the Group of Five representative. And then on top of all of that, you're leaving your team out to dry. That's where I got put my foot in the mud a little bit. How in the world are you going to do this for this team and everything? It just is the epitome of ruining the legitimacy of the sport and saying, like, why do you love college football over professional football? For you college fans out there, I want you to actually recognize, look within inside the heart, look within inside the soul. Why do you watch college football over professional football? Because there's more heart in college sports than there are professional sports. Professional sports, it's all about the money. This is the epitome of professional sports right here. Is, hey, I didn't get my money. See ya. The Deshaun Watsons, the Le'Veon Bells, those kind of guys that sat out in the professional world that said, hey, I didn't get my money. I didn't get what I promised. I'm sitting out this entire season. It makes you lose a little respect for the game. And now we're seeing it in college football with Sluka, with Bear Alexander at USC. I think his is just more he's frustrated that the defense sucks, and that starts with him too. But there's probably some money there as well. But it's like, man, this is, I grew up in the late 2000s, throughout the 2010s, watching college football when it was just like, man, these guys love this team so much. They're staying here 3-4 years, doing whatever they can, risking their bodies, playing the game that they love. And now it's, hey, I'm going to go to UNLV because they're going to offer me money. I'm going to transfer 3, 4, 5 times in a row because they're going to give me this money. And so I think that's where the shtick is with a lot of people. And so I'm kind of indifferent, though. Sluka deserved that money. Definitely. If the kid's going 0-3 and you hadn't agreed to anything, yeah, I might be holding on to that money too. I'm not going to lie to you. But the kid's 3-0. He busted his butt. He put his butt on the line. And you're not going to give him the money? Even for the trouble, you're not going to give him $150K after what he just did? I'm pretty split on it because it's tough each way when you're looking at the player's perspective, when you're also looking at, hey, this is a fan of this team's perspective. Freddie?
This entire situation pisses me off from start to finish about all aspects. From the beginning, the middle, the end, where this is going to lead to, all of it pisses me off. But you know what? These players, they can have agent representation. The only problem is that because there's no collective bargaining, there's no bar at which these agents are even like certified. I could go be an agent for one of these players. I don't know what the heck I'm doing, and that's a problem because there's too many college football players to go around for good agents. Right? There just is. Now, I hate the argument of, oh, if your work didn't pay you what you're owed, then you would quit too. I hate that because when you first get hired on somewhere, what do you sign? You sign a letter of compensation that guarantees X amount, and this is when you're paid, and this is blah, 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 blah. If my boss came to me and said, hey, we're going to promote you in 6 months, whatever, I'm not holding him to it unless that's on a piece of paper. I don't get my hopes up because I know that at the end of the day, humans are flawed. Humans lie. Humans do these things. They're, oh my goodness. They're very deceitful. Like they will purposefully hurt you. And that's the reason why this pisses me off. Now, shame on the coach for promising him that when he had no authority to do anything. From what I heard, it was an assistant coach. It wasn't even the head coach.
Yeah, it wasn't even the head coach, which is wild.
Yeah, so they said, all right, you get $100,000 plus we'll give you $3,000 for a relocation fee. They gave him the $3,000, and they came to him and said, hey, we're not going to give you $100,000, but we'll give you $3,000 a month for the remainder of the season.
Which is insane. That's crazy.
Which that equals up to around probably 12% of what he was actually owed. That's ridiculous. And then after the fact, whenever this came out and he opted out, the one of the guys in Vegas that owns a casino said, "Oh, 100,000? That's pocket change. I'll give it to him." And the fact that UNLV didn't even try to get the money in the first place, like that shows that the schools don't care about players like this. Now, let me pause. I hate opt-outs for bowl games with a fiery passion because you're quitting on your team. You know, you signed up for a commitment and you're quitting. This takes it beyond opting out of a single bowl game. And I mean, this is like UNLV is going to be out serious cash if they don't make the playoffs because of this man opting out. Because there's a certain amount of money that you get if you make the playoffs, and how far you get, their conference will pay them, things like that. You're allocated more money for TV revenue. They're going to be out tons of cash. But to quit on your team in week 3, week 4, come on, man. Now, I get in his case, right? You promised money, you didn't get it, whatever. It's still your fault because you didn't sign a contract. You just went on somebody's promise. Bad both ways. I want to talk about Bear Alexander for a second. This man's got commitment issues. Going back to when he was in high school, he has not played more than one season for a single team. Going back to his sophomore year of high school.
It does deep on that one.
It's that kind of stuff, dude, that pisses me off because, yes, Chase, you're right. That's the reason why I love college football. I love the heart that these kids play with for their school, for their team. Like, they have passion. Like, they want to represent the university well. Not anymore. We've seen with Florida State and them taking traditions out and all this and that. All that's going down the window. And now you got players that are just opting out because they don't care about the team. All they care about themselves. I'm done. This is BS, and this is going to keep getting a whole lot worse if something isn't done. Revenue sharing is the way to go, and I know they're going to do that. But you have to do things other than that to cap certain things, like make them do contracts, put a committee over these things. Like I know there's like not the NCAA, but create a bipartisan committee where it's full of, ex-players, where it's full of university personnel, where it's full of like these big company like promoters or CEOs that are willing to pay the money. Like, you could put together a committee bipartisan of each part of the process to make a baseline set of rules and laws and govern it. You can do it. So let's do it.
See, here's what I'll say real quick. When I look at this situation, obviously not everything is equivalent. Not every player is doing this for the same reason. So, like, sure. Specifically talking Sluka, I guess I just give more empathy to. We're talking about players that are between 18 and 25, right? Not necessarily a group of people known for making the best financial decisions. And when you can have pretty much anyone as an agent, you're talking about an unexperienced agent and an 18 to 25-year-old trying to get into legal discussions where they're getting intentionally scammed by massive universities, big, huge collectives, and teams of like alumni-based lawyers. Like, it's not a fair one-to-one here. So, like, when I look at, I feel bad for the players on UNLV, right? Because this is not their fault. No. But I don't feel bad for UNLV. You're bringing up like, oh, well, you're going to miss out on this much money from maybe missing the playoffs. Well, what about Matthew Sluka missing out on the money?
I brought that up as a shame on UNLV for not doing what they were supposed to do. Like, they're going to lose out on much more money.
Now, if you wanted to talk to me with Bear Alexander, I have a completely different opinion on Bear Alexander than I do Matthew Sluka. And it's going to change 1-to-1. And opt-outs is a whole nother thing, because I fully get on board with you on opt-outs. Opt-outs is self-preservation, screw everybody else. It's not like you're going, I'm opting out of this bowl game because you promised me money I'm not getting. So, well, I mean, we'll see, Chase.
If you can't tell, guys, Freddie is very passionate about the subject. We talked traditions a few weeks ago. Freddie is the guy that is very passionate about his college football. So,
And I just
but
want to
it-
say this. I just want to say this. Players should be compensated and paid. Like, I am
Yeah.
1000% behind that. But there has to be a structure and a way to do it that makes sense for both parties, and both parties are protected. That's all.
fair point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how you could have any other takeaway than that. Is right now we have a structure where both the schools can be taken advantage of and the players can be taken advantage of. And there is no like middle ground set of basic rules for everyone to follow. And if we're going into the world of being a professional sport where we're paying people, every other professional sport has a list of rules on how you can go about paying your players. I think that's a pretty simple fix. And guys, like if you got your own opinion, we'd love to hear it down in the comment section. We've been Three Bold Takes. We're sponsored again by SeatGeek. Use our code Three Bold Takes, $20 off your first purchase. Make sure you let us know again how you feel about this NIL transfer portal situation stuff going on again in 2024, and expect it to come again in 2025 and on. It'll only get worse until they put some kind of cap on it. That's what we've noticed with everything when it comes to NIL and transfer portal. So again, get down in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe. That being said, I've been Quinn, joined by Freddie and Chase, and we're out.